So, you were saying, sorry, you said something, you mentioned briefly about the COVID pandemic
Mm.
affecting your work. So, how do you feel specifically it affected your work at the organization during COVID and then post-COVID?
So for Robotics for All, COVID totally, in my mind, totally changed the organization because they were doing in-person classes locally. They when it kind of happened and everyone was sort of forced to leave school and forced into an online environment for some period of time, there was a obviously a huge growth in, both in online education. So people interested in like, how do I get this online education? Oh, availability to do online schooling. Obviously, people just sitting at home are like, sure, I'll take that class, no problem. I'm not too busy. And then um, also in volunteers, like there's a surge in people willing to volunteer remotely in that way. So in my mind, it grew the organization tremendously. Um, there was a period of time where there was many more volunteers than we have now, and um, I think in one year they taught close to 2,000 students in one year, in during COVID. And then for me, obviously, that's sort of how I got into the organization because, as I described before, and because of the online teaching environment. And so obviously it was pretty impactful for me. And then now, so that's kind of leading up to and in COVID. And then post COVID, there was the same sort of downturn, right, in online education, in online volunteering. And so we were sort of navigating like that downturn, and then how do we continue to do what we're doing or grow in that environment. So I'd say there was definitely a distinct like downturn. Our students probably cut in half or so post COVID. Our amount of student enrollments cut in half, and then like immediately following COVID, and then we had to think to ourselves, well, do we sort of immediately go back to teaching in person, doing in-person classes? How does this we morph the organization, I guess, with these changes in environment? I would say what we decided on is that we'll continue to do our online courses. They're still very successful, and then we're actually kind of growing that now. So they kind of were decreasing, then flat for a while, and now they're slowly growing again in enrollment. And so we've been doing some work on the marketing side of things, to try to get the word out there about it, because before, during COVID, it was very much like a pull, like people were looking for it aggressively. You didn't have to do much to market it, right? They just came to you. Now it's more like, let's get the word out there about it, and so people know it's available. And so we're more actively marketing those programs, and we are starting we've started a lot of in-person programs, and one that we started in November, which has been super successful, is we call it curriculum partnerships. So that's where we're doing, we have all these organizations that reach out to us and say, we saw your website or we heard about you, we like what you're doing, but we have our own club or school, we have our own people that to teach, but we don't have your curriculum, we don't have your kits. How do we get that? And so, like I said, we started that in November. It's grown a ton. We have a bunch of people, a bunch of sites online. We have five sites right now since November that are currently teaching our curriculum through this curriculum partnerships program we came up with. So we sent them kits, we sent them our curriculum, and they're teaching it now. And then we have 5 more that will be starting in late summer or early fall, that already kind of set up and done our agreement. About half of them are boys and girls clubs. So a lot of boys and girls clubs, a couple schools, and a couple other nonprofits. So that's a growing area for us right now, is this curriculum partnerships area. We're very excited about that. So it's kind of that, and then our in-person teaching, and then we have some of our volunteers doing some in-person volunteering as well. We have a school in Arizona. Actually have two schools that have Robotics for All clubs in their high school, and so those are kind of sponsored by us, but it's a motivated high schooler that started in-person school at their club. And then we provide them our curriculum, we provide them kits, and they go to a local elementary school with other high schoolers that they recruit to their club and teach in that school in the same way that Max and Garrett started at their school. So that's another way we're trying to grow, is through these high school clubs. So a number of ways that we're kind of trying to decide what the future of our organization is, and how we adapt to this like post-COVID change in landscape.